This is an Adventures in Middle-earth actual play using fantasy grounds. You can find session summaries, items and characters on World Anvil, where our campaign is called In the Shadow of the Mountains. You can cross-reference this episode as Episode 6. You'll find links to that and our other forms of media for our sessions as well as an index of this episode in the description. Previously on, after the battle at the Old Ford, the Fellowship once again sundered to spend the summer doing various activities. They have now rejoined one another to seek adventure in Wilderland once again.
You arranged basically in autumn to meet up with everyone again back at the Easterly Inn, see how the Hobbits are doing. So, not sure who wants to go first, but just let me know what you were doing.
I think I opened up a sanctuary for Bjorn's Hall.
Yes, you did. And it did some work in his forge, I seem to remember.
Valid credentials.
Yeah, so I've spent one winter in Woodhall doing forgery stuff. Doing forging, and now Bjorn's place. So I'm trying to get a face known as a good smith.
So Hathis wandered the Wilderland as a bum.
No, he didn't. He took the brooch to Radagast and asked Radagast to research the brooch if he would be so kind and tell him what it was. And then I think Hathis went and played with his dog for a while, teaching him to savage beasties on his own or something.
You did. Okay, that's good. What did Amalfrida do?
I honestly can't remember, John.
God, that's shocking.
You were rewarded a title after...
She was.
Oh, that's right. Yes, it
Fame.
Was I'm a named woman now.
You're a named woman of the Bjornings and have a couple of acres closer to... You actually lived quite close to Bjorn's Hall, but you're even closer now after that. And last but not least was Sigmar.
He spent the time in Stonyford becoming a new man, basically. Getting used to the fact that people trust him and like him. So he's changed his distinctive quality from grim to swift.
Oh,
nice.
So yeah, but when Sigmar looks a bit weird to you. He's like looks like he's at least shaven within the last week, and he's got a bit of a twinkle in his eyes. His head's held a bit higher than it was, and he's not sort of sloping around in the shadows. So something strange has overtaken him.
It's all a trick.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, because can be completely random, everyone roll a 20-sided dice, because one or more of you may have encountered stuff on the travels back up to the Easterly Inn.
4 is good, right?
4 is amazing if you were looking for a 4. So going up towards the Easterly Inn, Monin, you probably were about a couple of days south of the Easterly Inn. You were basically skirting the borders of the forest using firewood and stuff. It's getting slightly cooler in the autumn weeks here, and you saw some very obvious damage to a lot of trees and saplings growing at the edge of the wood, no more than about half a day or a day from the Easterly Inn. Give me a perception check when you kind of checked it out. Yeah, what really worried you, there were quite a large number of goblin or orc footprints. Some were shod, some unshod. It looked like they did the damage to the trees. And it was fairly wanton. There was no obvious fires or anything nearby, no campsite. Literally just destroyed a whole load of saplings, which did concern you. So that's fresh on your mind as you trudge your way up to Stonyford. Sigmar, you get there, didn't spot anything. Just going through the rest of you guys. Hathis, you didn't. Amalfrida, you crossed some orc tracks, but didn't see what Monin saw.
Okay.
But on the appointed day, you probably arrived within a day or two and spent some time in the Easterly Inn. The inn, it looks like it could do with a bit of a fresh coat of paint. It looks like not a lot's been done to it. It's still quite busy. The food was still great. You notice, it's not as fresh and nice looking as it was when you first got there. And Hathis, you have fresh in your mind some information on the black brooch from Roscabel when you popped in there on the way up.
Yep.
So yeah, you all meet up at the Easterly Inn. I can give you the information as if you're relaying it to the group about
absolutely,
about the brooch. So it's very much a piece made in very far to the north, Wilderland. Up in Angmar, probably, could be from Gundabad, somewhere in that region. He was very concerned about it and said he hasn't seen many artifacts like this, but they're typically only given to lieutenants of the enemy. So somewhere and someone has either given or he's found that brooch, and it could well be influencing his behavior, or could well have been influencing his behavior. You've now got it. He suggests that you don't take it back, and he will send it to the council.
That's fine.
The White Council, who thinks should discuss it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely. If it's influencing his behaviour and all that, then I don't want it back. I'll obviously say to him, keep a secret, keep it safe. And he'll understand.
He does. It gives you the secret middle handshake, and you're on your way.
Oh yes, I'm in at last.
Okay, essentially, you're looking to make some plans. It's autumn. It's cooler weather. Getting towards winter in a month or two. You actually feel pretty refreshed and relaxed after spending a summer of life-giving activities, but you need to get back into your group again, and you're actually quite pleased to see each other.
Where do we want to spend winter? Do you just want to spend back at Erebor, Dale? Or do you want down this neck of the woods?
So what time of year is it now? Tom?
It is. I will post you the exact date, in fact. You met up on your appointed day. It is.
I wish I knew what the weather was like as well.
God, yeah, it's been troubling me for quite a while, that.
F you all. The weather is I've deleted or disengaged the weather app, so you're not getting any weather forecasts anymore.
Say it isn't so.
I'd like to ask about the weather and then realise it's slushy with freezing our arses off in a bush.
Oh, it's actually sleety. It's early sleet for the season. It's not very nice.
So we don't really want to have to trek all the way back to Erebor in this weather, do we? So we're kind of, I think, stuck over winter where we are.
Yeah.
I think.
So discussing maybe over an ale, sort of like we think, well, there's obviously agents working around here. There's movement of orcs. There's the Black Brooch, which is, would it say something like Friends Forever or something? Or something along those lines?
BFF, I think it was, but yeah.
Yeah, so there's something going on there, isn't there? There's obviously some agents he's moving around.
Influence.
Trying to sort of knit bad people together. But then again, I suppose for us, we're minor players, so passing it up to the White Council is probably, I suppose, Mona would feel like he's done his bit.
Okay.
And in terms of our to-do list, I think it's fairly empty at the moment, isn't it?
It's a to-done list.
Yeah. You got the murderer back for judgment, and be almost very satisfied with how you handled that. Incredibly satisfied, actually, to the extent it gave Almafrida a title and all sorts of things. So.
Rescued a halfling, thwarted an invasion.
Put your feet up.
Oh, work is done.
Fire, and we're only level 3.
Yeah.
Pardon me, it's a fast pace in Middle Earth. Okay, so these orc tracks and the felled trees, how close are they? Monin tells us where they are. Maybe we should go and investigate those first.
Yeah, I'll just share the
Absolutely.
map with you again so you can see where you are on it. Just north of the East Middle Vales, there's a little gold symbol. That's where the Easterly Inn is. I'll point to where roughly you saw those. About there, where that arrow is pointing, is where you saw the tracks and the destruction of the trees. You headed up more directly from and you actually spent quite a lot of the summer Amalfrida building a kind of probably a 2-room small holding. It's like using logs, almost like a log cabin. Didn't finish it, but you've got it sound at least. It's got walls and a roof on it. They were pretty pleased with that.
Waiting for some Polish plumbers, I assume.
Of course, yeah. So dwarven plumbers, you just couldn't get them. They were very busy. You weren't prepared to pay cash in hand. So
right. So how close are these orcs to my fortress?
Your vast fortress is a few days south, so it took you just a week to get up there, equivalent. So not that close to you, but it's very close to the Easterlian and Rowanhold. You don't know which way they're heading. It looked like probably heading north, but a little hard to say. You came across tracks going towards the river.
And they felled trees, is that right? They'd felled some trees?
Yeah, some saplings. It wasn't just chopped trees down. They were destroyed. They were hacked to bits. And they were younger trees. They were saplings, not mature trees.
Okay.
And was that just in one area, like in one campsite, or was that in a whole, like a new copse all chopped down, or just...
From what Monin saw, it was just in one area. And he was kind of fortunate to see it was just inside the edge of the woods, some new growth in there that had been hacked to bits, and he saw a lot of orc tracks there as well.
And he was good at tracking things.
Yeah, not bad.
Not me.
Maybe try and pick the tracks up, see what numbers, try and follow the tracks maybe.
Yep.
Let's hunt some orc.
Okay, so you head out. You're not far from that location, less than half a day. Leave around 8, 9 in the morning, and you're there by noon. It's grey. It's a bit of a wind, but there's no rain in the air at the moment, and it is just cold. You can find it fairly easily, and Mona was absolutely correct. There is a lot of orc footprints milling around. Looks like they've taken axes to these things and hacked them off. Some of them have been even looks like they've dug into the root beds for some of these, which is a bit strange. They're just sort of wanton destructiveness of new saplings. What do you want to do?
See if we can pick up the track, see where they've headed. How many saplings have they taken, John? It's just a bit bizarre to hack down saplings.
It doesn't look like they've taken anything. There is a lot of saplings just lying around, not even piled up, just almost like laying where they were chopped on the ground.
Does it look like they're using these cleared area marks?
Hard to say.
How big an area have they cleared?
Probably ground floor of house type size. It's quite big. It's not. So it was obviously you wouldn't see it from a quarter of a mile away, but walking close to it, you'll see it easily.
Any signs of a fire or anything?
Nothing. That's a really strange thing. It's not like they chopped these down and then used them for warmth or cooking. They didn't do that at all. It looks like they just cut them out of the ground.
Does it look like they're trying to clear an area, or just wanton destruction of any small tree to varying degrees?
Give me no, actually, you don't need that. So you would say they were just aiming for the younger trees. There were some larger trees within that cleared brush that haven't been touched. Well, there's some axe marks in them, but looks like they gave up after a few chops and attacked the easy ones.
So maybe a rubbish attempt at starting to clear an area. But they haven't dragged stuff out the way. They've just left it where they chopped it.
Yeah, Monan's scratching his beard, puzzled. So do we know roughly numbers? Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, can I examine these marks? Are they all axe marks, John?
Give me an investigation check.
Done.
Looks like there are some. Looks like knife or dagger has been used to peel back bark off some of these, but the rest of it is just hacked out with axes by the looks of things. So
I wondered if they were just sort of, a bunch of crazy keen orcs with weapons that wanted to try hitting something, so they started just smashing at the trees. But it sounds more like a concerted effort to kill them, I think.
Orcs always are about destruction.
Sorry
if I missed it, but did you say how many numbers we thought there were?
More than a dozen, quite a lot.
Can we search the ground for anything dropped? Like maybe they've dropped dropped something from a pouch, or they've dropped a dagger and lost it in the grass or something like that. So can we search around for anything they may have dropped, John?
Yeah, I mean, you're busy. You're literally racking your brains and taking a step back, going around the edge of the clearing. Suddenly, you look up and almost simultaneously look around the clearing, and you're completely surrounded by elves.
Oh, wasn't us. We didn't do it. It was the dwarf. We weren't
And it looks like they've been there a little while, just observing you. And one of the elves steps forward, very gracefully, steps through from the tree line. The others have got bows out, but they're not pointed at you. They've got arrows not, but their bows are down. And they're looking more anxiously into the trees north and south of you than at you now that you notice. But the one coming out to parley with you actually recognize him as Galleon. So you met him in Thranduil's Hall. You didn't have an overly positive experience with Thranduil and the elves previously, but he looks over at you all, recognizes you, and then steps more quickly out into the area. And he says, Hathis, Amalfrina, Monin, Sigmar, if I'm right, in a very lilting voice, sort of questioningly. He said, yes, come with me. I need you to speak with someone. You get introduced to a very tall, gold-haired elf you haven't seen before, who steps out from the trees, incredibly well hidden. You hadn't seen him at all previously. And there is also a female elf whose face is veiled, and you've never seen anyone as graceful as her. As she steps out into the tree, you all feel pretty clumsy on your feet when you see her move out into the opening. And if you were going to put your finger on it, you'd think she was very angry with what's happened to the trees, as she's kind of looking around. Has anyone got proficiency in law?
Of course. I'm surprised you have to ask.
Okay. And has anyone got a wisdom of 16 or higher?
Of course. I'm surprised you have
Okay,
to
I think
ask.
that could be you as well. Yeah, okay. So you recognize them. They both seem, in fact, you all see this, they almost look brighter. Their skin is almost glowing. It's very strange in comparison with the other elves. Or I don't know, almost like more solid, more there, more present. The other elves. It's hard to put your finger on it. The tall, gold-haired one is dressed in green and brown and carries a bow on his back. He's young. He seems pretty confident, and Hathis, you would recognize him as a lord or a lordling of the elves. This is probably how he's holds himself. The other wears a gown of shimmering white and almost cloud grey silks. It's completely unmarked for someone who's been walking through the woods. That's remarkable in its own right, despite the thickness of the undergrowth around here. Her face is hidden in a grey veil, but her arms are adorned with silver bracelets. And on her finger is a ring that looks like it's glimmering in its own inner light. And you would recognize her as a Noldor elf, which you only read about. You've never seen a Noldor before.
Wow.
And you know that very few of those remain in Middle-earth even. They seem to be speaking to each other and looking over at you. None of you speaks any Elvish tongue, I believe. So you can't understand. You can't understand what they're saying.
Although I do have tongues of many people, I know a little of many languages. You can hold a simple conversation in any of the tongues of men or elves and know a few common phrases in the tongues of the other peoples, enough to offer a greeting, shout a warning, or insult someone.
So they seem to be talking. They seem to be talking about you. The young lordling elf seems quite anxious about, and is almost. It was almost, unless the fact you didn't believe elves ever argued, but you would always say that there's a difference of opinion about what to do between the woman and the lordling. He seems a bit frustrated with her, bows his head eventually, and then steps forward to you. He says, "Greetings, I am Legolas in Westron, son of Thranduil. This is the Lady Irame of the House Finwë. The lady is journeying west to the High Past. It was our errand to take her there, but these orcs must be driven from our land." He glances over at the veiled woman, then goes on. "The lady here has requested that you bring her the rest of the way there. We need to take care of these orcs. There are many in the woods," and he's frowning now. "This destruction cannot be tolerated or accepted. We must hunt them down."
Mona's not saying anything.
I don't think anyone's saying anything.
Well, he's not even doing any usual insults, because he can see we're massively outgunned here, and you can see like these are proper noble elves, so wouldn't probably stand a chance. And I know he wants to die, but not in this way. Not to elves. To God, not to elves.
Irame looks around at all four of you. Your eyes meet hers, but the intensity with which she is looking at you is very disconcerting. It's almost as if she's kind of reading you.
Mm-hmm.
And all of you drop your eyes actually make a let's save. Can we get just to see if you drop your eyes or there's a staring contest.
I'm more than happy to drop my eyes. I don't plan to try and outstare an elvish lady.
Monin
Okay.
will definitely try.
Can anybody find my eyes?
She's taken my eyes.
Give me a charisma check if you want to try and hold her gaze. Ooh,
Oh, yes.
Monin's facing her down. So yeah, Monin, you stare at her. You can almost feel your face getting redder. It's almost as if you sense that she's reading something and you're embarrassed about it. Yeah. It's a really strange feeling. But you last for probably a good 20 seconds, and it's very strange. You feel as if you're staring at her, but you feel that she is just kind of looking into your soul. Not really, almost your eyes are irrelevant, and she's looking at your character inside you. Eventually you kind of back off, but not without raising your chin a bit and smiling to yourself, that you feel like you've come through a bit of a tussle with her there.
Yeah, genuinely happy about that.
She kind of you would just almost by the tilt of her head, you can't see her mouth, but you would say, actually, if that was a normal person, she'd be smiling at the moment. But yeah, hard to say. So Legolas looks over at you all, has a quick chat with Galleon, and it's he says in Cinderin, which you can pick up at the odd word here, Hathis is not very talkative, are they? And then Galleon smiles, and then Legolas looks back to you and says, "So, what say you? Irame needs safe transport through to the mountains. We can't do that and tackle the orcs."
We would be honoured to travel more than a yard with Lady Irame, so to escort her to the High Pass is an honour, and we will, of course, do our utmost to see her there safely. We are slightly taken aback by her beauty and by her very presence amongst us, but we will, of course, do what we can to assist.
Irame nods at the very polite, very formal way that you speak there, and I can show you a photo of Irame potentially.
A photo?
This is what she looks like. Yeah, otherworldly almost. She nods, and then she's not said a thing yet. Looks over at Legolas and raises an eyebrow.
I'm doomed.
And Legolas says, "I'm not sure you're aware of the gravity of your charge and how important Irame is to the elves, and how critical it will be to see her safe passage." What say you?
Grateful would you be if she was delivered at the other end then?
His nostrils flare a bit as you said that. We're always grateful for the help of the others, he says almost disdainfully about non-elves.
See, my companions here, they wouldn't be as base to ask for monetary gain from this, but as you know, I'm a dwarf, so I'll ask for them. Would there be a reward for doing this for the safe passage?
My father will pay you some paltry sum for this great task, if reward of her presence isn't enough for you, dwarf.
Well, no, it wouldn't be, but I hope it's not too paltry.
He seems to be getting impatient with you. Anyone else want money for this? He says, and looks disdainfully at Monin and looks around the rest of you.
No, it is an honour. For me, it is an honour.
He nods. He still looks angry, but he nods at you.
Yes, you're probably right.
See, good bunch, these lad.
Okay. So, Monin, you did most of the talking. Give me a... Unfortunately, not a very positive request. But give me a persuasion check.
I can't imagine I'd be persuading many elves.
No, especially as a plague on the stiff necks of the dwarves is one of the expectations of the elves. So,
Dropped by 3 arrows.
yeah. So she speaks to Legolas, turns her back, and starts walking towards the woods. Legolas looks suddenly very concerned, goes and speaks with her in a very low tones. Basically, you hear things like "no choice," "can't let you travel alone" type conversations going on there. And eventually she comes back into the middle of the cleared area of trees and saplings, looks around you all, and then just walks west to stand on the edge of the clearing with her back to you. And Legolas comes over and says, Irame has not been impressed by your mercenary attitude. And looks down at Monin, quite literally and figuratively. However, we have no choice, and since you agreed to help her safely travel west, we cannot pass that up. We have heard of you and believe you to be capable of this, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. We have orcs to dispatch, hunt down and kill. And with that he says something in Elvish that you didn't catch, Hathis, and the elves immediately start coming in. They're bringing basically piles of they start collecting wood, and it's incredibly efficient with which way they're doing it. There's dead wood that they're bringing in, cutting up. They're building a fire. It's interesting. They're not just putting a fire on the sod on the ground. They dig it up, build a fire inside the turf. And almost out of nowhere, there are incredibly elegant folding tables. There is even white tablecloths being put in there. And as it's getting darker, these incredibly elegant, almost like the best way to describe it is like Chinese lanterns, like paper lanterns, but much almost in a teardrop shape hanging from the trees are appearing around the edge of the clearing, which are providing some light into the clearing. And you have no idea where these came from. They must have packs with this sort of stuff in, but thin, elegant folding tables are appearing even. So they travel well, elves in the forest by the looks of things. They invite you to eat with them and provide you a table. Doesn't have a tablecloth on it, but away from the elves. But they at least provide you some food. What do you want to do?
I'll happily eat at that table. I probably won't try and speak to them too much beyond being polite. Probably try and keep a low profile and try and up how we look competence-wise and professionalism-wise.
So Monin will not be addressing the elves, but he'll address whoever's closest in the party. You see, this is why people don't like these elves, because here we are just minding our business, trying to cut down some orcs, and they suddenly dump some lady on us, and then we have to thank them for it, for taking them 2 or 3, 4 days a week to the west there, and then suddenly when we ask for some recompense, we're the bad guys. You know, that's why nobody likes these elves. I mean, that lady lass, whatever his name is, I mean, who does he think he is, or she is? Is it a he or a she? I'm not too sure.
He said he was the son of Thranduil, so I believe he's a male.
Ah, right, sorry.
Maybe King Thranduil's fallen on hard times.
I suppose you can't sell too many.
Worst things could have happened.
Monin's actually going to try little pieces of whatever the elves offer, just to see if it's as disgusting as he thinks it is.
So, what do you want to do, man?
He'll try
He'll
any
try
of the
food.
only little pieces, break little pieces of, just to taste it, just so he can say he's tasted elvish fare.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it's wrapped in leaves and steamed by the looks of things, or smoked. Is actually really tasty, but you'd probably never admit that.
Oh God, no! You know, it's like the most loveliest thing. You'd be like, oh. Then take a second.
It's got grains in it, and it's some sweet sort of berries to sweeten it. There's no red meat that you can detect, but it's got amazing flavour. So
so he'll be complaining, going like, "Oh, that's terrible, and grab another piece. I can hardly swallow this." And breaks another piece off and puts it in his mouth. I mean, give us some wine there. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, how can he? Takes another piece. How can they eat this stuff?
And the wine is really good. It tastes like, I don't know, summer breeze with a little bit of a hint of alcohol in it. It's very, very tasty indeed. Much lighter than wine you've had from men before.
Careful, Monin, don't want you to be ill.
I've got good dwarven constitution.
Belch.
As he fills a second glass.
Okay, so you do you want to do anything to speak with the elves or anything that night, or just bed down?
Well, Monin's going to try his professional way of actually trying to swallow his pride and speak to some elves about any smithing techniques they know, because if he knows about Noldor, he might know that, you know, they're from Gondolin. They were like some of the best smiths ever.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have any lore knowledge? Because as a player, you'd know that. Not sure whether Monin would. He probably would. Just give me a lore check. You are aware of the almost legendary Noldor elven smiths. I've never seen any work by them, but you're aware of them.
Yeah, so if he can start talking about smithing, then you'll see his prejudice completely drop and start talking about, if there's anybody who knows about techniques or any of that kind of stuff, then he will actually just talk like a normal person should.
Okay, give me a persuasion check, just as a basic charisma kind of check to see how well that conversation goes. You start off quite gruffly. You're ignored by the first elf you speak to. The second elf, and it's really when you draw the weapon you've been working on, looks and nods a little bit, and then you do strike up a bit of a conversation about smithing. It's a bit stunted. The elves
watch it.
typically they don't have very good Westron, but you don't insult him, and he does seem to, and you're quite proud. He seems to be quite interested in some of the techniques you've used to make the weapon you've got, which kind of surprised you. You don't find anything out about you because he's not a Noldor about Noldor smithing, but he does seem, when you bring up the great historical Noldor smith and knowledge of that, he seems quite kind of elvishly proud of that.
Yeah, and Monen's as well with his ego stroked about, like, if he can sort of spot the odd, like, admiring glance on his weapon, then he definitely mellows.
The frosty air is slightly defrosted by the end of the night. You sense, or probably the others, because you're quite deep in conversation, but the other three of you see that Irame has spent quite a lot of her evening looking at Monin, and looks around at other things. And actually, you would get a sense that she looks more comfortable with you guys than she did when you first met.
Somebody's in love.
Okay.
Hathis will just sort of drink in the situation he's found himself in and try and remember every detail and notice every detail, because it may not happen again. And he's sort of, now he's relaxed a bit with some food and drink. It's kind of like, wow, I'm actually dining with Legolas and friends under the stars.
It's an amazing experience. And towards the end of the night,
a couple of selfies if I can.
But yeah, you get inside the back of your cloak and things like that. So there's a strange stringed instrument you've never seen before. One of the elves brings out, and the voices they have are astonishing. It's better than anything you've ever heard in a tavern anywhere. And it's very lilting. It goes on for a long time, probably about an hour. And it seems to be just a single song with a series of kind of rising crescendos that are underpinned by some real tragedy. Incredibly beautiful. And you all actually shake your heads when it finishes suddenly, and just sit there in the silence and suddenly realize actually you're quite cold. No one put anything on the fire for an hour, and you've just been listening to this music. The elves then go to their...
Well, I think Monin wouldn't let them get away with it. I think he'd have to play his horn, you know. It's got to always play his horn. His shitty horn, but play
it. Give me a performance check, Monin. This is going to be great.
Oh, it's not too bad.
Ooh, that's pretty good. It's one of your better ones.
So Monin, as an homage to the elven singing, fortunately he didn't decide to accompany them during the singing, but at the end. So what sort of thing do you want to play, Monin?
Oh, just something really, really morose.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you're playing dwarven blues.
Yeah, basically.
So, quite literally, and so and it is. It's a sad counterpoint to the. There's nothing uplifting about it, but the musicianship is good, and the horn tones are pretty lilting. And the Legolas looks over and is almost with a frown on his face when he hears it. None of the elves speak. They were very polite about this. If I'm being honest, the musicianship isn't quite as good as the elves. It's good, very very capable, but they're very respectful. And how long do you want to play? Did you run out of path?
No, I think just one's enough. One song.
The elves wait until the last notes die away. You can't understand it, but Hathis can hear them saying things like "good" and "sad" and things like that.
Do you know what the next line is from Spinal Tap, John?
Lick my love pump. Yeah. Okay. So. Sorry for the non-Spinal Tap fans in the audience, but so quite somber as you set up camp. The elves retreat to the tree lines, set up some very fine tents. They look almost like silk, but fully waterproof. if you wouldn't know, if you know any better, you'd say these are very modern man-made materials with some sort of Gore-Tex lining or something. But they look very capable of withstanding all sorts of weathers. It's cool, but not raining. And they settle down and almost instantly are quiet. You know that there are elves out there on watch. Can't hear a damn thing though. And you feel it's like safe enough to go to sleep. You've lost track of where Irame's disappeared to, but she's in bed by the looks of things. Just before you settle down, the elf Gallon that you first met says, well, travel safely over the next few days, and I don't need to repeat Legolas' words how important this is. Farewell, sleep tonight until tomorrow. And then he sort of turns around and beds down himself, goes back to a tent on the edge of the woods. What do you want to do yourselves?
Have we been told that there are elves on guard? Can we
Yeah,
guarantee? Okay, so we don't need to post guards ourselves and be accused of complete ignorance. But I bet the elves disappear at like 3 in the morning or something, if that. They'll wake up and they'll all be gone, apart from Irame going, I've been up for 4 hours. What are you guys doing?
So up to you. If you want, you can post watches if you want.
So is she awake and sitting up and talking?
No, she's gone to a tent, hasn't she? She's already crashed out, gone to a tent.
Yeah, she's in a tent, and she hasn't said a word. You've said a word to any of you all.
She's been abandoned. Her protection party's gone off on a distraction to hunt some orcs and left her with the first pattern of travellers it come to. I'll be
Bloody
miffed with her.
Philistines, yeah.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Bye. I guess we get up early and, for God's sake, guys, try and look competent.
Okay, so you wake up in the morning. You can hear a fire crackling as you sort of warm up. There's not a single elf or tent to be seen. The only person left, so Hathis is pretty smell the club.
That was the album, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh God, I've got to watch it again. It's a fine movie. So Hathis was correct. There was only Irame's there. She's standing,
arms folded,
warming herself by the fire. Yeah. She's now got much more practical clothes on. That shimmering gown you saw yesterday has been replaced by some sort of muted brown and green traveling clothes, including a heavy hooded cloak. Mm-hmm. And she isn't veiled, but that hides her features very well. So the cowl is pretty deep, and you can't see her face in there.
Is she armed?
Doesn't look like it. No. The other thing so give me a survival check, everyone. You can make it in the tower. Hathis, Sigmar, it's the weirdest thing. You think you're less than a day from the old ford now. You woke up and you look around. The where you were staying looks very similar to looks like exactly where you went to bed. But looking through the trees into the middle vales, you're convinced you're probably only a day, maybe a day and a half from the old ford now.
We did teleport. Strange. Very strange. Don't know. But if we crack on, the sooner we set off, the sooner we'll be there.
Whoa, hang on. We just can't accept this. We have to question it. Do you have us learning them arcane ways?
Well, the only explanation would be Sigmar or Hathis ballsed up their directions, and you're actually in a different place than you thought you were. Or I don't know, you magically transported many miles while you slept, which is obviously impossible. So
yeah, he's going to go with the former.
Well, are we where the chopped down trees are and the burning is? Where they burnt their fire. Okay, so it's definitely where they were. So we just went to where Monin said that he found the chopped down trees, etc., didn't we?
Strangely, that only took you half a day to get to from the Easterly Inn. It's at least 2 to 3 days south the old ford from there.
He doesn't really know how to address the elf, other than elf. I'm going to say that. My lady, I think. My lady
would be a good start.
I don't see any weapons on you. So if it comes to a fight, can you look after yourself?
She looks at you. She draws her hood back, and you thought she was going to be a beautiful elf, but she is otherworldly beautiful elf. She is the most attractive thing you've ever seen, let alone a woman you've ever seen. And you kind of stumble over your words as she draws her hood down, Monin. And weapons, she says, it's almost she's speaking Westron, but with a very, very, almost like, imagine speaking English, but with a Chaucer, old English type lilt on an emphasis. Even some of the words sound very different from yours. So weapons would maybe weaponies, for example. So it's her Westron is ancient, and Hafiz, you know that's a very, very old form of the language she's speaking. And she says, "No, I have no need of weapons."
Do you stun them with your beauty? And he sort of blushes, but he just blurts it out. Excuse me, sorry. And he walks off quickly.
Yeah, the rest of you notice that she doesn't smile when he says that.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we get going while the light is good?
I mean, you know where you've been asked to take her to the high pass, where you will be met by elves there. You've done those kind of travels before, so you kind of know the terrain. So as you're packing up and just making breakfast, I guess you can just plan your route. And she appears to be listening intently, but not giving you the impression she's listening intently, almost like a cat would if you're getting dinner out or making dinner. It pretends it's not interested at all, but is actually listening to everything going on.
So we can either head south to the old ford, I guess, and then follow the old forest road across the high pass, or we can cut the triangle off, but we're crossing unknown terrain. If we head south, we go via the Carrack and Crofter's Vale, which we know is safer and more patrolled. So that would be the direct route, but across unknown terrain. If we head, you say only half a day from the old ford?
Yeah, you'd probably say a bit more than that, maybe a day and a half. But it's closer than you'd have thought it would be.
We're in safe, we can go via Crofter's Vale, can't we, for example, if we need to, in terms of, presumably that's safer terrain than, I mean, if we went in a dead straight line, John, does that feel like sort of wilderness and scary land, or is that still pretty much as civilized and as patrolled or as safe in inverted commas as if we went due south?
So if you go southwest and almost head straight to the old ford, it's going to be fairly difficult given the orc tracks around and the fact that they're probably in western Mirkwood. You would guess that's where you can't find tracks, but you would guess that's where Legolas led the elves. They would probably headed east into the woods to track them from there, and probably north. So if you head west and then south, that may be safer than staying near the woods. Yeah.
But not heading due southwest in just a dead straight line like you drew on the map. So get to the river, head down the river, and then along.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you could even stick a few more shingles on Amalfrida's new house on the way past if you want.
Yeah, party at Amalfrida's. Her fortress, I think she called it, didn't she?
She did. That's quite optimistic, but yeah, maybe.
You could show us your new house, Amalfrida.
If I get seen travelling in the company of an elf, it'll ruin my reputation.
Face it, Monin, you don't have a reputation.
It would change your reputation. I'll accept that.
Yeah, he opens his mouth to say something, then doesn't say anything. You might have me there.
So you would estimate. So she's listened to your discussion of the journey and says that makes a lot of sense in old world Westron. And then I recommend we stay off tracks, even if the journey would take slightly longer. I've got a sense that the orcs are looking for me.
That we weren't told. Okay. So do you feel you've been followed by orcs, or do you feel they're searching for you?
The tracks, there have been many crossing hours and many signs of orcs. This is not a warband that's just heading north or heading in a specific direction. We're crossing them too frequently from our route through Mirkwood.
In which case, let's head towards civilization.
Who is the guide? I think that's Hathis, isn't it?
Shit. Yes, that's me.
So this is pretty straightforward. So you've definitely done this before. This is your skill plus half your wisdom is a modifier, and I will ask you to roll D12 and add that on.
So which skill is it? My survival skill?
No, not survival. Sorry, this is your proficiency. So I think it's 2 plus half your wisdom.
Okay, my wisdom, as in wisdom bonus rather than my entire wisdom score.
Yeah, so half your wisdom bonus added.
The wisdom bonus is +4, so half of that is +2. My proficiency bonus
total
is
+4.
Yeah. Yep. So do you want me to do +4 and a D12? Is that?
Yep. Just let me know.
+4, a D12. Which one of you is a D12? You are in the open or
Yeah, do it in the open so you can see what you're getting.
7 plus 4 is
Okay.
11. Sploosh.
Okay, so your decision to go west and then south seems to be a good one. You travel for the entire day, and not only see no signs of orcs, you see no signs of orcs. Sorry, you see no orcs. You see no signs of orcs even. So no tracks you've crossed. And Irame, towards the end of the day, comes up to you, Hathis, and says, because you're obviously taking these duties very seriously, and says, your wood skills are not trivial, human. Thank you for the safe passage. And you're now getting towards probably the Carrick type area.
Okay.
From the first day, but she was pretty impressed with that, with your ability to navigate that, and you haven't seen any of those orcs whatsoever.
Good.
During the day, she says very little. She looks at she's interested in the river and spends a lot of her time looking at it. She definitely appears to completely trust you all to keep her safe. She's not anxiously looking around. She's not looking at ridgelines or hilltops for signs of orcs and pursuit. It's clearly that other people do that for her, and you are those other people. She speaks as you were leaving the borders of Mirkwood, and she looks almost wistfully back at Mirkwood, and she speaks of Erin Galen, the Greenwood, also the elves used to call it before the shadow came to the south. And you've heard that it had a new name, but to you, Mirkwood's always been Mirkwood. But for her, it's a real tear of sadness as she moved away from it. As you approached the Anduin, she got very animated, much more excited about than you've ever seen her. I wouldn't say excited, but she actually spoke quite enthusiastically about the Anduin flowing past a golden wood of Dorinan, which you've never heard of. Hathis, you're the most knowledgeable about this. She's speaking almost with a catch in her throat of a land that you've never heard of. She speaks to you of being careful of the Lady of the Forest. There are some patchy copses of trees, no forest there anymore, which is kind of really strange for you.
Whenever she does speak about these olden times and her local knowledge of the area, I will listen, and obviously listen very intently in case I can learn snippets and learn little bits of lore or little bits of information that might help my scholarly knowledge of anything and everything, I guess. He's very interested in what he can learn on this, but he doesn't want to question her too much because I don't think she would take that well. So he will listen without questioning too much to start off with.
And as you're traveling that night, she don't know where it comes from because she's not got a lot of equipment at all, literally kind of almost like a satchel. But she produces food from that sufficient to feed all of you. It's the same foul stuff that Monin obviously hated yesterday.
Which he goes back for seconds of.
Yeah, these little dumplings, these are horrible. Look.
It's the most welcoming she's seen. She's, I wouldn't say warming to you, but she's comfortable in the decision to travel with you. And it's clear that singing and the elves sing at night. You don't know a lot about elven culture, but her voice, and she didn't join in the night before, but is astonishing. It's almost like it's hard to describe. It's like a musical instrument that as she sings that night. You can't unfortunately understand it. It's very mournful, and she probably only sings for 10 or 15 minutes, and you could almost see her eyes gleaming, whether that's catching the moon or the tears in her eyes, you can't really tell, but and her voice eventually fades away and there's just silence around the campfire once more.
Monin did have his horn out, but after she finishes, he just silently packs it away. Not following that.
Hathis will say very quiet thank you when she's finished. Won't say,
you picked up a few phrases in there. She spoke of a land called Beleriand, sang of a land called Beleriand. You've heard of Beleriand, it's more of a myth. It seems to be drowned beneath the seas. She spoke to, you would guess from her the phrasing that she speaks of middlemen, but you would think this could be either men of Dale or woodmen like yourself, but you don't really know. But she doesn't use those words. And she also speaks of men of twilight, and you have no idea what that refers to. So she seems to be differentiating races of men in a way that you're not familiar
Yeah.
with. So she speaks of men of twilight, and she also speaks of men of shadow. And you get a sense that they either live to the south or east. And it's something about great kingdoms that you gather, but you can't work out what it was.
Again, Hathis will file all this in his mind palace, but won't ask her too many questions because he doesn't want to be rude. But he will avidly devour it and file it for later, looking up on Wikipedia and Google. But scholarly research when he's back at his books and papers, etc., and talking to others. But he's like, wow, motherload. If I must remember all this, I must learn all this sort of thing. She's kind of in his element.
No problem. Next day, she's again standing near the fire. You have no idea. I mean, even though you had guards posted and you didn't encounter anything during the night, the guards didn't see her close her tent up and stand by the fire and get it. It literally was not listening or looking that direction. It was looking outward, not inward. But suddenly, and basically, everyone was surprised to see her standing in the middle of the camp by the fire again, and it's well lit from the embers. So the next morning, she comes over to you, Monin, and just waits respectfully in front of you, a little bit looking down at you, and then she holds out her right wrist, and on it you can see silver bracelets, very clearly inlaid with dwarven runes. And inlaid with, you've seen this as a smith, you know what this is Ithildin, which is called moon silver by the elves, or that's the Western translation of that.
Right.
And she looks to see if, so you do recognize what that is, and you recognize that those are dwarf made. If you give me a smithing, do you have smith skill? You do, don't you? Yeah, give me a smithing check. Yeah, you don't recognize where you know it's dwarven make.
That one.
For the life of you, no idea where it was made.
Oh, they're bracelets. Nice. Yeah. I want on holiday too.
He's just staring up at her face. Completely missed the bracelet.
I mean, you spot it, you see them. And so she's looking almost expectantly down at you. So she's not said anything to you, Monin, other than showing you a bracelet.
Sorry, my lady, I work in weapon ores, really. That's a very delicate item you got there. I can see some dwarven runes on it, but it doesn't have any recognition to me.
A lilting voice says, "This was made in Moria's glorious halls in ages past. It was a beautiful city once. It was a gift from the dwarves."
I'm going to presume that he knows about Moria.
You don't even know where it is, but you have heard of Moria. Yeah.
Aye, another fallen city.
There's a faint smile on her lips, and it's not a happy smile. But when you said about fallen cities, and it's almost, yes, a lot. She's seen a lot of that in her life, you would guess. Most of this is, even Hathis is kind of skeptical about Beleriand, for example. It's myth that she's talking and singing about, and Moria is almost a mythical place. And only you would have heard of that. Moan and the others have not heard of Moria even. So even your readings, Hathis, wouldn't have dictated that. But you pack up and you travel for the rest of the day. So within a couple of days, you stop for lunch and look at the fine job that Amalfrid is doing building a house. And by the end of the day, you're back down at the old ford. The years seem to weigh very heavy on Irame. Her travelling clothes don't seem to move when she almost like wafts along somehow. And she's never speaks with a laugh in her voice or anything. She speaks very somberly, very sad almost, and frequently looks off in the distance. It's almost as if she's seeing you're not, and very melancholy. I mean, you pick up a lot of snippets, even though you cannot understand some of the stuff she's saying in Elvish as you're traveling. That was a safe part of the journey, getting down to the Old Ford, and you do that by the end of the second night, based on your experience and the mountain ruins and the old ring fort west of here. That even traveling down the old forest road that goes up to the high pass is more dangerous as you go west of the river, and she's recommending you go off the track a little bit here. So do you want to take any specific precautions for the next day, basically?
Hathis isn't necessarily the most tactically astute of the party.
I don't come off the path here. I mean, we've done this journey before, I think. We know where we're roughly aiming for, because I imagine you can just see the mountains to the west. So we're heading for that cleft down that way. That's it. So we don't have to follow the road. We just need to make sure we're heading ourselves roughly in that direction there as he points to where he thinks the high pass is.
Mm-hmm. And so, and presumably, is there any difference between north of the path and south of the path, John? It's just the same, presumably. It's not. It doesn't mark.
Yeah, it's wild. It's much more wildlands here, much less agriculture. Within like a mile of the river, you're not going to really spot anyone. Travelers tend to have armed convoys and go together here. It's much more dangerous.
Well, if the orcs are looking for the lady here,
let's assume so.
They don't like the light, do they? So let's assume that we're going to be pretty okay during the day, unless they got some agents working for them, some Manish agents. So what do we really need to do is make sure if we can make the high pass by nightfall, we find somewhere nice and defensible, even if we have to stop a couple hours ahead of time.
Yeah, Hathis, you would estimate about probably 2.5 days on the road, at least 3 days travelling off the road, like a mile north of it, for example.
Okay, I'll relay this to the others.
Okay.
It's 2.5 days travel on the road. It's going to be nearer 3 off the road.
Right, so if I know anything about goblins, then keep away from anywhere shady. So keep away from thick stands of trees and all that kind of thing. Hills, high hills, somewhere out in the open. Just that will keep us safe during the daylight, and then nighttime we'll need to find somewhere good.
Yeah, so for the first couple of days, before you start getting into the foothills down the Misty Mountains, it's broken and fairly wild, but there's no things like rocky ravines and in the foothills. Before the foothills, when you get into the foothills, it's going to get harder and harder to try and achieve that. So yeah, your chances of finding a very safe passage diminish essentially the farther you go on without there being darkness there. So you set off on the first day. You cross the ford. You know the drill there with the ferry to get you across. It's interesting. Irame looks long and hard at the ferry before getting on it and speaks of an amazing bridge. And she seems quite passionate about this. It's a great bridge built by the dwarves once spanned the river here. It was even enhanced further by the men of Lost Kingdom of Arnor. And she said great armies rode across the bridge, and she vividly remembers, and there's almost tears in her eyes, of
what the bloody hell's the bridge?
A kinsman holding what she called an ice spear up, glittering in the sunlight as he rode away into the shadow to war. And she said she was not a young girl, but a younger woman when that happened. Shakes her head at the destruction of beautiful things once more. The next day, that day though, you do travel across and you start making your way north of the road.
Mm-hmm. You're
sufficiently far away that you can't see the road. You're quite confident in your ability to travel north there. Who's the scout? I think that's
Sigmar, isn't it?
Sigmar, yeah. So Sigmar,
the
Swift. Give me a perception check in tower as you're traveling.
And as we were traveling, Monan would like to try and ask her about who Finway is and does he still live? Because obviously I doubt you know anything about Finway. Or she.
Straight in with a blunt question. Your dead king, who is he? And is he still alive?
She pauses for a few seconds and said, Finway has travelled to the far west. That doesn't mean much to you. You think that he's got to the Blue Mountains. So, Sigmar, that day you don't really spot anything. Mid-afternoon, you would estimate, and it's pretty foul weather now. It's drizzly and fairly unpleasant. You're all looking pretty dampened. It looks like her clothing is remarkable. Rain is kind of running off it. It's not soaking in at all. Her hair still looks pretty immaculate under the hood. And as you look, she stops and holds a hand up, and holds her left hand out, and a small sparrow flies up and lands on it. And you're almost all holding your breath, and you could swear she's whispering to it. It flies off, and she says, "There are orcs ahead."
I didn't see any. Little bird tell you, did it?
She says a word that you can't comprehend in Elvish, and then spotted them less than 2 hours ago. It was a name that you got a sense she spoke about the bird. It wasn't just this bird; it was a name.
Okay.
Tweet by.
Are
Yeah.
they,
So are they heading this way?
are they ambushing or are they heading this way?
They're traversing either side of the road. They're zigzagging across it and keeping an eye on it. I didn't know. I only just saw them. They were heading direct south at the time.
So we might be able to spot them and dodge them if we can spot them before they spot us.
If they're heading south, just wait.
Well, they're going to be zigzagging north and south, aren't they? So you want to time it as they start heading south, which kind of flit across the north. So so it's a little bit of timing and a little bit of spotting them. That's all. Does that make sense?
You need to see them first. You don't know exactly where they are right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we probably need Mr. Scout to very carefully spot them, and then we can time it.
So what I'm going to need, Sigma, is for you to kind of sneak up to where so Irame says it's over the breast of the ridge, and she's pointing to a ridge in front of you. It's about half a mile away. Is where the bird said that there was, and it was. All she could tell you is there's lots of orcs. A war band, you described them, but that's where they were. So give me a stealth check to creep up there to try and avoid being seen.
Okay, well, first I'm going to say, stay here. I'm going to scout ahead, and then I'm going to rub some earth on my face and on my clothes and just make myself look a bit more blendy-y.
Okay. You can make these rolls in the open and just role play it out if it's completely catastrophic, but just yeah.
And do we know, roughly speaking, a war band, is that 4 of them or 44 or 444?
It's nearer 40 than 4, but you don't know. You're not.
Yeah, of course, I understand that, but yeah.
How many arrows have I got? Yeah, I'm not going to Paris at all. Okay.
Stealth check. Yeah, stealth check.
Oh.
Okay. You could spot Sigmar. He kind of didn't manage to keep himself below the ridgeline as he gets. He was pretty stealthy up to that, but maybe exuberance or overexcitement, you could kind of see him break the ridgeline and then despair down the far side. Sigmar, you come across tracks, very obvious ones of orcs, lots of them. You look the direction they were heading and don't see anything. So give me an investigation check to sense how recently these were laid down, if you want. Yeah, you would estimate probably no more than 2 hours ago, maybe even less than that. Very fresh, even the drizzle hasn't really caused them to deteriorate.
Can I tell which direction they're heading? Are they?
They were heading south. I can't
understand her description. She says zigzagging across the road, just back and forth across the same bit of road.
No, it looks like they were probably going, for example, maybe that way, and then
sine wave travelling down the road, for example.
So they're coming towards us, zigzagging.
Potentially.
Possibly, it's hard to say. That's heading directly south. They could be going directly away, but you think they're going towards you.
Also, doesn't make much sense because if I've encountered footprints of people heading towards us, then.
Oh, sorry, their direction of travel is towards you. The footprints were going perpendicular to your direction of travel.
Okay, so essentially, they've just zigged, going south, coming towards us. When they zag, they're going to basically run into us.
Unless we happen to be in between their peaks, which is unlikely.
That's just I'm wondering, if I've got that right, then Sigmar's going to stand up and beckon to you really urgently.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is getting towards dusk. It's getting darkish. You see Sigmar gesticulating to you. You all heading over?
Yes, we've got to trust our scout.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Weren't we aiming to try and find somewhere defensible before it got dark every day until we had no choice?
Yeah, so you've probably got about an hour to try and strangely, right on the footprints, maybe the safest spot if you can find somewhere fairly defensible.
Upstream on the footprints to where they've been.
If they're heading southeast-ish from where we're standing, if we head northwest-ish,
upstream,
reduces our chances of running into them.
Okay.
Better than strong defences, I think.
Tree, but goblins can track. So if they do come back our past tracks, they'll come back towards us. So just in case, we'd need to get somewhere where we might have to make a stand, or at least somewhere we can hold up.
Irame's looking concerned when you discuss the direction of travel of those, and she said the strange elven name again, and then saw different tracks, the ones you're describing. They were heading in a different direction. There
So
are
it's
more
maybe
than
two
one.
bands.
There's more than one band out here.
2 bands, so maybe one goes up and the other goes down.
Oh, me, oh, my.
Sneaky.
So to try and evade them for the rest of the day, and for the rest of the journey, you're going to need some survival checks here, Sigmar. So give me a DC 15 survival check to see if you can help the party navigate between these bands moving around the wilderness here.
Can we help him at all, or was he on his own?
According to my skills page, I've got a tick in an insp box. Does that mean I've got an inspiration to use?
It does, if you want to use it.
Yeah, I think I will.
Inspired thinking.
And can people assist or not?
You can make a decision to use inspiration once you've seen the result of your roll.
Oh,
So you don't have to kind of burn it right now.
You sure?
People can. So the way I'm going to do this, to be able to help, you need to come up with something pretty useful, not just like hold his bow for him. So I can have one person helping. That person also has to succeed in the check. If they do, you get an advantage, Sigmar. So I'm assuming you're the best at this. So
I don't think so. I'm not very good at it.
Okay, so you're doing the scouting, however. So who wants to assist Sigmar? I'll give advantage to the roll if you get it.
I'm happy to assist. I don't necessarily have a genius idea immediately on the top of my head to provide that, but I'm happy to try and assist him with my outdoor survival skill that I have.
Okay, give me a survival check, and you can make it in the open. And it's DC 15, so good luck.
5
You
plus
don't
6 is
get
11.
the benefit of the assistance, Sigmar, but give me a DC 15 survival check.
Interesting idea, Hathers, but I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah.
I don't think walking along the road in broad daylight's that useful.
Singing a hi-ho?
Head towards them.
so Sigmar,
Now would be a good time to use your inspiration.
Oh, yeah. So if I want to use my inspiration, do I just roll again?
Yeah, so you roll again, and good luck. You need to beat DC 15.
Oh, piss.
You improved slightly, but not sufficiently. Just as you're rounding, it's kind of a round top hill. As the darkness is drawing in, suddenly you can hear damn close, like hundreds of yards, and moving definitely in the direction towards the hill, sounds of orcs. You can even hear orcish grunting and screaming coming now, and lots of footsteps. And suddenly, Sigmar, as you're kind of halfway up this hill, you spot coming round at the base of it, no more than 200-300 yards away, a ragged but pretty large orc warband, and it's coming straight towards you. There's no escape. There's the most obvious place looks like the top of this hill to like try and defend yourselves. And it looks like there is some rocky outcrops at the top, and Sigmar makes a flash decision and like, follow me! And you all start sprinting up the hill.
Charge!
Shit.
Balls, as he says, yeah. So
Charge uphill, Robin. Charge away from it. Run away from it. We are screwed.
And that's where we'll leave this episode. We are screwed, according to Sigmar. We'll find out next episode. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for subscribing. All the ways you can get in contact with us are in the description. Other than that, catch you next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.